With the Christmas season looming, the spending habits of most people tend to be more than the usual, what with gift giving and grocery shopping for Noche Buena. Sometimes, we cannot control our spending habits, especially when we have what is called plastic money or credit cards. Credit cards are actually convenient when we run out of cash and don't have the patience to go to the bank or ATM machines to withdraw money. But when we use our credit cards too much, we deal with a huge pile of bills and collection agents demanding us to pay what we owe. We have all heard of horror stories of collection agencies demanding payment. But when is it considered to be crossing the line? Where is the line drawn between simply reminding credit card holders of their bills from harassing and humiliating them? Is there something you can do about it? Is there someone you can report to? These are the questions we will address tonight. Good evening, I am attorney Karen Jimeno and you are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you.
And I'm attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will be discussing your rights on the issue of loans, more specifically, credit card debt. What you need to know when you are in debt and what you need to do when you think you are being harassed by collection agents.
Yan.
So Rod, malapit na Christmas.
Advance Happy Christmas.
Yeah, thank you.
Yan.
And alam mo naman pag Christmas, that means shopping.
That means shopping,
Yeah.
and that means what they call...
Using your credit card. Well, how do you go shopping? Do you use cash or
plastic money.
credit card?
Me, I ideally want to use cash.
Credit.
But,
okay. Ako, I like credit cards because
the
you can
convenience.
keep track of your expenses.
That's true. Also for the convenience of
Yes,
it.
you don't have to carry money. But the problem is, I think, for some people who don't really keep track of their expenses, parang it's a disadvantage to them because they keep charging on their credit cards and then they get into debt and then there's this normal problem. I have friends sometimes who ask me, paano yan, pwede ba ako makulong? They're worried if they see their debt dun sa credit card bill na sobrang laki and they can't pay.
Right. The interesting thing about credit card transactions, well, the fact is, most of the time, before you have to fill up a form and sign a contract to get a credit card. Now, hindi na. You would get an envelope containing a pre-approved credit card, and some people, and minsan the clauses there are that if you don't call and cancel the card, it's deemed active. It's deemed active, and every year they charge an annual fee, and before you know it, you've accumulated all these annual fees. So there's a lot of our televiewers, and I'm sure a lot of our people out there, just generally, who are going through some problems. Sometimes they think it's a legal problem with respect to their credit card, and I think this show tonight.
But there are a lot of laws that actually protect our viewers who use credit cards. One, for instance, is our Truth in Lending Act. It requires credit card issuers or lenders in general to state clearly ano ba talaga yung interest rates. Because sometimes naka-fine print, you don't know that you're required to pay a huge interest. You know, in credit cards, you know, minsan meron kang total bill, meron yung minimum amount due na sobrang liit. But the danger is, akala mo you're getting a good deal by paying that minimum amount due. But you don't know na yung matitirang balance will be charged a huge interest rate.
3.5%. No, it sounds very small, no? Yung 3.5%.
Unless it's per month, right?
Exactly, it's 3.5% a month, and that effectively is more than 40% a year, no? So that could be, if you're not careful, lalo na sa mga credit card users, apart from the interest rate, pala, minsan if you are delayed in paying on the date due every month, there's normally a penalty charge or a fee, no? That a late payment fee that you have to pay. So before you know it, when you check your statement of account, you realize, ba't hindi lumiliit yung utang ko? Di ba? It remains the same.
Sometimes you end up paying just for the interest, right?
Yes.
Nauubos na yung pera mo, kakabayad na ng interest, hindi pa mabayad-bayaran yung principal just because sobrang laki ng interest. Parang 5-6.
Parang 5-6. Now, it's one thing. Normally, the challenge there, okay lang yung you're getting statements of account. No? Okay lang yan eh. But the problem is when collection agents start knocking on your door,
Yeah,
giving you
that's really
harassing
scary.
calls, right? And they're threatening you that they'll file a lawsuit against you, they'll
Yeah.
put you to jail.
And
Doon nagiging
a
ano.
lot of people don't know that these are illegal acts. We will discuss this later on in our show.
Yes.
There are things that are considered as unfair collection practices. And it's covered by regulation by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas.
Yeah.
So these are things that we will instruct our viewers to look out for.
Yeah.
Na kahit meron kayong outstanding credit card balance, there's a limit to how it is collected from you. Meaning, kailangan nyo pa rin bayaran, but it has to be collected from you in a
Yeah.
humane way and
Correct.
in the bounds of good faith.
Yeah, in the show, we'll assure you that having a credit card debt is not the end of the world, but it also doesn't mean the end of your debt. So, so we'll find ways and provide solutions to make it easier for you. I believe you have some questions that we received, no?
Yes.
In our
So
website.
let's answer a question
Yep.
from one of our viewers. Our first question is from Angel of Alabang. My family and I suffered a traumatic experience from a collection agency. They wanted my sister to pay her debt of 40,000 pesos. But at that time, she couldn't afford to pay except the minimum every month. She tried negotiating with them but was denied. The agents called us 3 times a day for 6 months, divulging information of my sister's accounts to whomever they spoke to and threatening to sue and imprison her unless the issue was settled. My father had to intervene and paid her debt in full. Does the bank and collection agency have the right to threaten my sister and everyone in our family? Should banks and collection agencies divulge bank secrets to anyone they talk to? Mahabang tanong. No?
Yeah.
Pero
very close to your heart yan, yung bank secrecy law na yan.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course. No, but of course, let's try to answer this
Yes.
one by one. Unang-una, yung pagtawag. We don't know what hours of the day they were calling you to collect the debt, but under a BSP regulation on unfair collection practices, bawal na tumawag sa inyo before 6 a.m. and after 10 p.m. unless you told the collection agency that those are the only convenient times that they can reach you. Also, unless the debt is already over 60 days due and unpaid. So kung wala pa kayong 60 days na outstanding yung credit card balance and tawag na ng tawag na madalas and before 6 a.m. and after 10 p.m., that can be considered unfair collection practice.
Ito nga, morning, noon, and night, no?
Yes,
Morning,
and
noon, but, I think-
Another, important
Yeah.
question that we should
Yeah.
answer is yung kung pwede ba siyang makulong.
Yeah.
That's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Under our constitution, you cannot be imprisoned for
Yeah,
debt.
that's important, no? And for all those who are afraid, with respect to particular loans or credit card debt, yeah, that's the first thing you have to remember. Now, you cannot in any circumstance go to jail because of money that you owe. The thing is, if the collection agents become really unruly and they start threatening and they start harassing you and make threats, na they're going to file a case against you, that you'll be imprisoned, that's illegal, and you can actually report that, duly. no?
Yeah, you can report that to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. They have a Financial Services Protection Bureau.
Yeah.
And also, Angel mentioned na hinaharas sila nung pag-collect, no?
Yeah.
So, Angel, you can also file a complaint with the Financial Consumer Affairs Group of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. You can complain to them about these unfair collection practices that were being taken against you and your family and your sister. And also, yun nga, bawal din sa Bank Secrecy Act na nagda-divulge ng information tungkol dun sa accounts nung sister mo.
Yeah. So there are ways to be protected, no, from all of these harassing parties, no, lalo mga collection agents. Okay. So yun.
So let's
Exciting.
take another short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders.
Nagkaroon ako ng credit card when the time na regular ako sa company. nagkaroon ng pre-approval sa mga bangko, nagpadala na lang ng card sa company. Then yun, natuwa naman ako kasi credit card nga eh, di ba? So, yun, hanggang nagkaroon na ng 2, 3, puro pre-approval, pinapadala lang sa company, then itatawag mo lang sa kanila, then ready to use na. Sobrang okay kasi kahit saan ka pumunta, malls, restaurants, wala kang dalang pera, isa-swipe mo lang siya. Then yun, nabibili mo lahat ng gusto mo. The first time with my card, syempre, okay pa na ma-manage pa yan. So, swipe dyan, swipe dito, kaya pang bayaran. Then until naging marami ng credit card, so anywhere na pumunta ka, puro swipe na lang. So, hindi mo na ma-manage yung gastos mo. Nag-overspending ka na, then hindi mo na mabayaran yung isa, tapos may isa pa naniningil, so sabay-sabay na. So pag may emergency ka, wala ka ng pera, wala ka ng pambayad sa credit card. Yung 2 kong card, umabot na ng tig 50,000 each. My credit limit is 20,000 each card. Then mga 2 to 3 years ko nang hindi nababayaran. Yung interest ng bangko siguro, yun na yung nagpatong-patong kayo umabot na ng 50,000. 2 months, nung hindi na ako nakakabayad sa kanila, may tumatawag na galing bangko. Then, sinasabi, babayaran ko na daw kasi nag-overdue na. Paulit-ulit na ganon kasi wala akong pambayad eh. Then, dumating yung time na may mga tumatawag na representative daw ng bangko na kailangan ko na daw bayaran. Kasi daw, pag hindi, idedemanda ako or pupuntahan daw ako sa office tapos papahiyain daw ako doon dahil sa utang ko sa credit card. Okay. Gusto ko lang malaman sana kung totoo bang may nadedemanda sa utang sa credit card. May paraan kaya na yung sobrang laking interest ng bangko, pwede nilang i-waive yung iba. Kasi, for example, credit limit mo is 20,000. Mas mataas pa yung interest. Nag-double yung credit limit mo because of the interest eh. May paraan kaya na i-waive ng bangko yung sobrang laking interest.
You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel. We are now joined by Attorney Ted Pastrana. He has an extensive experience in litigation and commercial transactions, including loan and financing transactions. He is also a professor of law at the San Sebastian Institute, teaching obligations and contracts, civil law review, and taxation review. Good evening, Attorney Ted.
Good evening, Karen.
Very good.
Good evening,
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
Thank you.
So you've seen, of course, the problem of Paulo,
Yeah.
which is, I think, a common problem among
Very
credit
common.
card users,
Oo.
especially with credit card companies who just give unsolicited credit cards.
Marami
Kasi
yan. Marami
they
yan.
don't check kung if the people are financially capable or responsible enough to use a credit card.
In fact, that's one of the problem. The default rate here is quite high compared to other countries. It's because they don't really check.
Yeah.
They don't really check.
Yeah, normally they have a
You
job.
mean they don't check the backgrounds yung
The-
nung binibigyan nila ng credit
Correct.
In this
card?
case,
Correct.
he just had a job. He
Yes.
got it from his company, and he got the credit card pre-approved.
That's
Yes.
right. And not only one, but 3, I think, based on his experience.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think what happened here is that they accumulate.
Yes.
Accumulate. He kept on swiping. So,
First, his question, Attorney Ted, is there a way, I think he's asking kung paano niya, how he can deal with the demand from the credit card companies. I think he's unable to cope with the payment because sobrang taas ng interest rates.
Well, first, of course, is to identify which portion of what is being demanded is the principal and which is interest and penalties. Okay, and then he can start negotiating
How
with.
can he do this in terms of determining principal, interest?
Well, I assume he knows, he keeps track of his purchases, and so from there, he can take a look and compute his purchases, and of course, anything on
So-
top of that would be interest and surcharges.
But his question is,
I think this is something you can look at the billing statement.
yes.
That's right.
Right?
That's
Billing
right.
statement, find the name of the yung
Kasi
amount ng
the question
principal.
is,
can I be demanded? I mean, can I be legally demanded to? Of course, I think
Well,
that's the answer
yes,
there is
that's
yes. Right?
that's contractual in
Yeah, yeah,
nature,
yeah,
right? I mean, the terms and conditions of the card agreement will show that the card company can collect this much interest and can impose penalty and can
Right.
collect surcharges, late payment, and such other finance charges.
But just to follow through on that, you said it's contractual in nature, but it was pre-approved. He already has it, and he never did anything to confirm that yes, I'm accepting this card. He just used it.
Yes.
So that's contractual.
Of course, that's
Yeah.
what you call a contract of adhesion.
There you go. Yeah.
And I'm sure you know that contracts of adhesion are not by themselves illegal or void.
But should there be a question, it's always construed against the one who,
Of course,
who
of
drafted
course.
the contract.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
That's
Con-
right,
by
that's
contract
right.
of adhesion, for the benefit of our viewers, that means if the terms of the agreement are already there, in this case, yung pre-approved credit card nga, pag tinignan nyo dyan, usually you don't notice it, there's a lot of terms and conditions attached to the credit card, and that already is the contract. So meaning, it's prepared, even you don't negotiate with the credit card company, kaya siya tinatawag na adhesion. But I'd like to point out yung interest rates. How can Paulo, for instance, reduce yung payment ng interest rates if it is too high for his income na hindi niya kaya tuloy bayaran?
Well, it's a matter of negotiation with the card company. We have mentioned that there's a case about Macalina versus BPI, where the Supreme Court itself said that the 3% per month or 36% per annum may be unconscionable, and in certain cases, the Supreme Court has reduced the interest rate, not only the penalty but also the interest rate.
yeah. Now, some people have asked me and conferred with me whether credit card companies are charging usurious rates, and well, I think a lot of people know it, but don't know that the fact that the usury law is legally non-existent at the moment, right?
Well, yes, we still have the usury law, but it's defined as charging interest higher than what is allowed by law. But unfortunately, the interest rate ceiling for for loan transaction, had been suspended. So technically, it does not exist. I mean, you cannot be convicted for usury.
So in this case, Paulo can look at what interest rates he's required to pay every month, and if it's along the lines of 3% per month, then he can contest this with the credit card company, right, to reduce the interest rate.
He can,
perhaps.
he can try and negotiate for a reduction of the interest and penalties. And based on decision of the Supreme Court, it's you can negotiate to lower it to 1%. Per month or 12% per annum for the interest, another 1% per month for the penalty.
So I believe that kind of the ballpark figure that's acceptable is 24%. No? 1%,
That's right.
1% a month for the interest, 1% for the penalty.
That's
Is that
right.
That's kind of like the ballpark acceptable rate that the Supreme Court.
That's
has
right.
been,
But of course, this is not a hard and fast rule.
Yes,
It depends on the circumstances of each and every case.
And Attorney Ted, a lot of people have also asked us whether and what steps can they take in case there is already a complaint or a case filed against them by credit card companies.
Oh, that's of course difficult. When there was already a demand and then you don't pay, and that prompted the card company to file a case in court. They're acting within their right to do that. Well, the next best thing for you is to consult a lawyer, because this is the part where you have to file an answer to the complaint. Otherwise, you may be declared in default. All right, so you wouldn't want to risk that.
Now, some collectors or collecting agents, they always quote Republic Act 8484, which has something to do with access devices. Can you give a clarification on that with regards to credit card?
Well, I really don't understand why that is often resorted to. 8484, after all, is just the regulation of the access device.
Yeah. So it's basically faking a PIN number or account number.
Or using a bogus credit card or a stolen credit card. But when it comes to regular transactions, then
Yes.
you don't really
But
rely
I think
on
an important part of this law is that the fact that even credit card holders can be considered as committing fraud. And one important provision here that I think people should be aware of is that if you have outstanding debts, credit card debts over 10,000 pesos that is unpaid for over 90 days, and you change your residence or leave your workplace, your place of employment, without notifying your credit card company, then you can be considered as that is prima
Yeah.
facie evidence
Evidence.
of fraud.
Fraud, yeah.
Meaning, if they can prove fraud, then you can either be subject to imprisonment or
Yeah.
penalties.
And the penalties there is not so much for because you owe money. No? It's
Yeah,
because of the
but
Because of
fraud,
the fraud,
defrauded,
it's either
yeah.
that you've committed.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But only under the circumstances that you mentioned. Karen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So viewers, be careful that when you're going to change your residence or leave your place of employment, check if you have outstanding credit card debts over 10,000 pesos that have not been paid for over 90 days. Be sure to notify your credit card company so that you won't be presumed to be defrauding them. Now let's take a short break. We would like to thank Attorney Pastrana for joining us tonight.
Thank you,
Attorney
Attorney
Ted.
Ted, thank you so
Ron.
much.
Thank you.
And Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders. And we are back. You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel.
Let's answer a few more questions from our viewers. Now, this question comes from Dirk. I worked as an OFW for a company in the Middle East for 6 years. During my stay there, I acquired a credit card, but later on was fired and was sent back to the Philippines. I assumed that the card was terminated by the bank, but the collection agency started calling and harassing me, demanding me that I pay them. My question is, can they still demand me to pay even if I'm not there anymore? And will they deport me back there if and when they sue me? Ayan. Okay, well, I think first question is, can they go after him? Well, this is more a question of...
What laws apply in the Middle
Yeah,
East?
what laws apply. No? Technically, Dirk, of course, you are required to pay your credit card debt, even if you're physically already here. I guess legally and morally, no? You do owe the money that they say that you owe. But in terms of enforceability, kasi it's a little difficult, no? Because we're not aware or not too familiar with the laws in that Middle East country that you mentioned. So it would be dependent on that. No? There's some, I understand, some jurisdictions where owing money can lead to imprisonment. Not in our jurisdiction, so that you're lucky in that regard. But when it comes to other countries, yan, iba-iba yung mga rules dyan. So you really have to find out, no?
And Dirk, also, yung pag-deport naman, you cannot be deported from the Philippines because, of course, pag sinabi mong deport, it's the country that will deport you kung nasaan ka. Nandito ka na ngayon sa Pilipinas, and even if you haven't paid your outstanding credit card obligations, hindi to offense against in the Philippines or against any company in the Philippines, so they cannot deport you. Ang question is, pwede ka bang ipa-extradite? Meaning, pwede ka bang hingiin nung country from the Middle East na ipadala ka ng Pilipinas doon para pwede kang makulong dun sa utang mo na hindi nababayaran. But this is something that we have to check. I don't think that you can be extradited or pwede kang dalhin doon just
Very
for
rare,
your outstanding credit card obligations. But yung ginagawa sa yung pag-harass just to collect, if it were a company, a credit card company in the Philippines, bawal yan and you can complain it to the BSP. But the problem is, this is a company outside of the Philippines. So, walang jurisdiction dito ang BSP
yeah.
or any of other government agencies. So you have to check, maybe seek the advice of a lawyer in the Middle East.
Yeah, it's a matter of, so in a way, it's a matter of enforceability. In terms of legality, yes, you are liable, but in terms of being able to enforce that, yeah, that's another matter altogether. So, yeah.
And our last question is from Anton H05 via Twitter. And he asks, are the letters from law firms demanding me to pay my bills real? Meaning, do they really come from law firms and not from collection agencies posting themselves as one just to scare people like me? Okay,
That's an
that's
interesting
an interesting question. We
Yeah.
can't see the letters, so we
Yeah.
can't really verify if they're real or not. But one thing I do take note of is that there have been several reports to the BSP of some credit card companies or collecting agencies that use
Bogus.
either
Bogus law firms.
Oo, yung parang they call it mga pseudonyms or
Yeah.
mga aliases
Yeah.
para hindi sila ma-report because they know that there's this BSP regulation na pwede silang i-report pag unfair yung collection practice. But then, again, we can't tell, baka naman totoo naman din yung mga
Yeah.
demand letters from you because if you do have unpaid collectible credit card
Debt.
debts, then of course they can demand that from you by hiring a law firm and demanding the payment from you. But then also we have BSP regulations that require them to first notify you if they've already assigned your account to a third-party collector for collection at least 7 days before they assign it to a third party. Meaning, for instance lang, example, you have debt, outstanding credit with credit card company A, and they want to use an outsider, they want to outsource yung pag-collect from you, they have to notify you in advance first. And they have to give you the opportunity to settle your outstanding credit amount.
Yeah, I think what's important to state there is that it's not so much whether that's a valid letter
Law
from a
firm,
lawyer,
yeah.
from a law firm. I think that's kind of on the side. It's a side issue. I think what's important is, do you really owe them? And if you do, I think you have a legal obligation and a moral obligation to pay your debt. No?
Yes.
Otherwise, they do have the right to obviously pursue collection. Ang binabawal lang is the harassing type
Yeah.
of collection.
But
yeah.
just to add, that is harassing. If they're only pretending, kunwari, this credit
Yes,
card
yes.
company or their collecting agent is only pretending to be a law firm and they've sent demand letters to you and you find out these are all fake, you can complain to the BSP and report them because that amounts to an unfair collecting practice.
Oh, pero marami na, no? I mean, right now, you get all of these, I know a lot of my friends are getting all of these letters. Very hard to differentiate
Yes.
what's real
Well,
or
if
not.
they're pretending to be a law firm,
That's
they
actually
can check.
Yeah, and that's actually a crime
see,
right there.
They can, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But for the person receiving the letter, they can check by either looking at the name of the supposed law firm and then researching kung meron ba talagang ganong nag-exist.
All right.
So,
All right,
you
so
know-
there it is. So that's all the time we have for tonight. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us in clarifying some issues on credit card debts and how to resolve these problems. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno.
don't forget to like us on our Facebook page and to follow us on Twitter. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Join us again for another round of discussion as we talk about your legal rights. Good night.